Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa, and I want to welcome you to another English class here on verbling.com. In this hour, we're going to be talking about some current events, some late breaking news, what's happening over in Syria and what the U.S. is doing. So I chose an article about that, and we're going to read that together this hour. So when we're doing the reading class, it's a good way for you to practice your pronunciation, also to listen to me when I'm saying the words so you can hear how I pronounce the words and my intonation so that you can get used to that and try to model that. Also, during the reading class, you can learn some new words and expressions while you're talking about something interesting. So if you have a reservation for this hour, please go ahead and use that now. If you didn't make a reservation, that's okay. Just wait. After the first 2 minutes of the class, you can join the class by clicking on the Join Class button. So, hi, welcome. Hasan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How was your weekend?
Kind of boring.
Oh yeah? How come?
I don't know. It is my third month and I'm still on my vacation, so it's starting to become a little bit boring. But
ready to do something else.
yeah. So I'm waiting to start school.
To start school. Okay. Yeah. You're studying in Istanbul then?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What are you studying?
Law.
Oh, great. Cool. Okay. When you're studying law, is it just going to be Turkish law or international law or what?
No, actually, I have both of them. Some classes about Turkish law, like domestic, but some classes are international. So I'm gonna have an international diploma.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Okay. Nice. And hi there, Hamid. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay. What about you?
I'm okay. Are you retrieving your data now?
Yes, I apply for again and again.
Okay. Good. And
today I applied for 5, I guess, new places.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay. Good. Well, something's gonna work out. We'll see.
I hope so.
Yep. You just have to keep trying. You know, I'm gonna send you something. I'm reading a book about math and science learning, and she keeps telling stories about people who they weren't necessarily the best in the class, or they didn't necessarily have great grades or something, but you know, lots of stories of people like that who eventually went on to win the Nobel Prize for something or other. So I'm gonna send you a story of a guy, a Spanish guy. It's pretty interesting.
But the worst point is people nowadays only believe our papers.
Yeah. Well, you got to keep trying. Yes. Eventually, something's gonna happen, and one thing will lead to another thing. So.
I hope so.
Yeah. Anatoly, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It was raining here last night, so definitely more fall weather, which is okay by me because I like it. So good. Does it rain very much in Moscow?
No, last days we enjoyed sunny days.
Nice. But in general, like throughout the year, in terms of how much rainfall you get, is it a rainy place or not so rainy? In general.
In general, we have a short time sunny days in that month in September. We call it woman's summer, like this.
Oh, okay.
Summer. Maybe grandmother's summer, like this.
Yeah, we call it Indian summer here.
Indian, okay.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, and Adrian, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. And you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Welcome to class. Okay,
Thank you.
so we can get started. If anybody, Adrian, where are you calling from?
I'm from Uruguay.
Oh yeah, Uruguay. Okay, great, wonderful. That's awesome. What time is it there? Is it like noon or 1? Or
What?
what
Can you
time
repeat?
is it for you right now? Is it?
It's the 2 o'clock
Oh, 2
p.m.
o'clock. Okay,
Yes,
all
yes.
right. I'm in Washington State, so I'm always interested what the difference is in the time zones. So you're the same as Brazil, mostly 4 hours ahead of me. Okay. Oh yeah. What's Istanbul's weather's been terrible?
Yes.
Has it been raining?
Yes.
Oh. Well, that's kind of good because Istanbul needed water, so I
And
imagine.
yesterday I read news, and it said maybe it is coming snowing for Istanbul.
Oh
But
wow. Jeez.
hopefully it is
Really?
only rainy.
You must be kidding. In this season, the snow is how?
Yeah, that would be really bizarre. Wow. Changing weather patterns. Okay, well,
Global warming. Global warming.
global warming, I guess. Yeah. Well, there's all kinds of other stuff happening as well. So besides the crazy weather, we also have crazy stuff happening around the world. And so I wanted to I had another article chosen, but when I went to the website wasn't working very well, so I had to choose something else. And so I decided to just go to npr.org, where I go to often. I usually like this one because it doesn't have as many commercials and stuff as other radio stations and news websites. But when you go to the main page, sorry, they have like the latest news and what's happening and stuff. So I just took something from here. Obviously, one of the big things that's happening right now is what's been happening in Syria, and I haven't been keeping up with it so much, but I'm understanding maybe Hasan or Hamid, you guys can tell me more. It's having a big impact on Turkey, right? What's going on in Syria is having a big impact on Turkey. I heard that 100,000 Kurdish people are just coming into Turkey. Is that correct? Have
Actually,
you heard
Kurdish
that?
and Syrian.
yes,
Okay.
they're not just only Kurdish, also
Oh.
Syrians. Like,
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Has that been on your news? People talking about that?
yes, of course, for
Yeah.
sure.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's always difficult when huge masses of people start moving into other countries, and they have to, it's a big stress on the country and the economy, and even though you want to help people, of course, it can also be
Yes,
difficult.
yeah. I know that it doesn't sound like okay, but on the other hand, also it is difficult for our lives. I know
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't sound friendly, but unfortunately, it's not okay for our life in here.
Yeah, it's similar with Americans, especially when it hits certain locations. Like if you look around the world, like the movement of people, certain locations get more immigration than others. So, like in the United States, for example, people coming up from Mexico or Central America, they're mostly
Yeah.
coming to certain states. Like they don't come really a lot to my state because it's not on the border of Mexico. So when you live in an area that borders another country that's having troubles, it can be hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lisa, before the starting, I want to ask you: did you ever hear about something about Turkish citizens? How can I say? Our government rescued them from the IS.
I haven't been following that too much, but hopefully in this article we're going to be reading, we can learn some more, and then I was hoping you guys would be able to tell me more because sometimes it's hard to know exactly what's happening because people report only on certain things, so we don't necessarily always hear what we say, the whole picture, get the whole picture. Yeah.
Yeah, but I already reviewed it, so it doesn't mention about Turkey situation in
Yeah,
the state, but so
yeah.
yes, of course we can talk about it also.
Okay, great. Yeah, so why don't we get started reading, and while we're reading, we'll do it the same way where I read and then you guys read, and I'll go over some vocabulary, but certainly you might know more about this than I do even, so I would like for you guys to add in whatever information you have and knowledge about this topic, so we can have a little bit of a discussion as well as we read through this. All right, so the title is Airstrikes Move to Syria Target More Than Just, and we've been saying ISIS. So ISIS is what we've been saying in English. In a major escalation of the air campaign against Islamic extremist groups, the U.S. and 5 Arab allies jointly hit targets inside Syria for the first time. The New York Times says, the intensity of the attacks struck a fierce opening blow against the jihadists of the Islamic State, scattering its forces and damaging the network of facilities it has built in Syria that helped fuel its seizure of a large part of Iraq this year. All right, then who took part? We'll go. That'll be next. Okay, how about you read that, Hasan?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna read it again.
Yeah, you're gonna read it again. Yeah.
Okay. In a major escalation of the air campaign against Islamic extremist group, the U.S. and 5 Arab allies hit targets inside Syria for the first time. The New York Times says the intensity of the attack struck a fierce opening blow against the jihadists of the Islamic State, scattering its forces and damaging the network of facilities it has built in Syria that helped fuel its seizure of a large part of Iraq this year.
Okay, so a major, whenever we use the word major like this to describe like a noun, escalation, just means huge, you know, it's significant, it's important, it's big, it's not just a minor or a small little thing that they're doing. So escalation, to escalate is the verb and this is the noun, and it just means to, you know, when you get into a fight, maybe you're just arguing, and then if you escalate the fight, maybe somebody's hitting you, and then if you escalate it even more, you maybe pull out a weapon or something like that. So whenever you have like a disagreement or an argument, you know, it can always get worse and worse and worse kind of thing. Like the stakes get higher and higher. So that's what it means. When you escalate a war or a campaign or something, you make it more aggressive. So the air campaign, that would obviously involve fighter jets and bombs and things like that. So the campaign in this context, in terms of a fight or maybe possibly a war or something like that, the campaign is the actual doing of something. So the air campaign is how we talk about this is the plan to go and attack this camp over here or this city over here, or you know, the soldiers over here, and so we're going to have an air campaign. So it's the whole plan for how to fight. Of course, they're fighting against, and this is a good way for you guys to understand the language, how we talk about it in English. So against Islamic extremist groups. So of course, extremist or radical is another word you might see or hear. So the U.S. and 5 Arab allies. So the allies are when people working together. So like your friends, or not necessarily friends, but in terms of countries working together, they're allies. And so they work jointly, which means together. And so they're hitting the targets in Syria for the first time. So this is kind of big news, because obviously there's tension in the area and all the things that are happening. Intensity of, so how intense something is, how many bombs were dropped, how many people were injured or killed, or buildings, that's the intensity of this type of air campaign. Also fierce, struck a fierce opening blow. So the opening blow is like the first attack. The blow is like when you hit somebody, like in a boxing match, if the opening blow from one of the boxers, it's the first big punch in the boxing match. So to strike a fierce blow against somebody, that's the expression, to strike a blow, or the opening blow is the first one, and they're going against the jihadists. So I think you guys probably used the same term. Do you guys understand who that is,
Yes,
the jihadist?
in Turkish we have the same word, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's from Arabic. It's not in Turkish even.
Right, yeah, because when I'm listening to like French, they're saying the same word. So the jihad, so how do you guys understand it? I'm wondering if we understand what it means in our different countries, because we keep hearing this, the jihadists. So who are they and what do they stand for? Do you guys know?
They are fighting for their, I would say, for their believing, and I think it could translate as, but I don't remember word, revenge.
Okay. So you when you hear that word, you're thinking of Islamic people who want revenge?
Yes.
Okay. Is that how you understand it, Adrian? What do you understand?
Yes, I understand
Okay.
the term jihadist.
That's what it refers to. What about Hamid or Hasan?
I think there is a very big gap for this word, and it is it is being understood from the people wrongly, and also in Islamic people, among Islamic people.
Yeah. That's what I want to know. How is it understood with somebody who's actually a Muslim or Islamic?
This word's meaning is to work and to effort for some ways. It can be, for example, in scientific way or in Islamic way.
Okay.
It means to be good and useful for humanity.
Okay.
But people don't know its real meaning, and nowadays some people only understand jihad means war.
Okay.
To die in the God way, they can understand only this meaning, but it is totally wrong.
Okay, but when you hear a news report about, and they're talking about the jihadists of the Islamic State, what do you think of in your mind? Like, because here, I've been putting some stuff in the Verbling chat. What we tend to think, like a person who listens to the news doesn't really necessarily know a lot about Islam or something, but basically that they're kind of a radical, kind of fundamentalist.
Yes, like yesterday's topic. I mean, like Al-Qaeda or Islamophobia is a big example for this word.
Okay, so yeah, so they're the people who believe in armed struggle, perhaps. Can we say that?
Can you say again, please?
They are believing in armed struggle, so their beliefs are traditional Islamic or fundamentalist, and they fight. But I'm always curious, what exactly is it that they're wanting? Like, do they want all the Islamic states to come together and be very traditional, or
maybe they try to reunite for all Islamic people, but with different ways.
Yeah, with their own beliefs. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it can be mentally as well. Not only from the war area. I mean, like sword or the weapons. It can be from the mental way.
So, like supporting. Yeah. Right. Okay. Is that what you would understand, Hasan? With this term, jihadist?
Jihadist, basically it's kind of, I mean, if we leave all of current news from today, basically it's kind of duty, religious duty for Muslim people. So, but on the other hand, I don't agree with Hamid at one point, because yes, the west part of world recognize like it is kind of barbaric thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it is yes, I admit it. It is true. It's a fact. It's a horrible fact. But on the other hand, it is kind of I'm not gonna say but it's kind of fault that comes from the east part of world, because yes, it's a philosophy, but during the centuries, they had used it as a weapon. Like we have to go further, and they were using it as a weapon. So unfortunately, that's the situation. The fact brings it. It's really hard to explain in English, but
Yeah, that's what I was trying to see is how we can talk about it in English, because it's it's not so well known here in the United States. I don't know how people think of it. They just hear the word jihadist a lot, but I don't think people actually understand. And when we read, like Anatoly just put up the Wikipedia, and so I took a little bit about. It says struggle or resisting. So I don't know, because I've never read the Quran, but apparently it talks about it. Maybe, I mean, I think it's similar in some other religions as well, as when you try to like convert other people to your religion.
yes, definitely. Definitely, it's same idea, but
Okay.
like every religion in the world. But
Yeah.
yes, actually, and on the other hand, it's kind of low, because as far as I know, the Christians or Jewish people doesn't have that kind of law and related with their religion. But Islam is kind of different. I'm not really sure about it, so I can say just I can talk about just only the law part about it. So
Yeah. Okay.
the religious part of it, so I don't know either.
Well, that's an interesting thing, because historically, of course, there were more religious holy wars taking place throughout the world, like in Europe and stuff. And so the idea that the United States, part of the people who came here to this, the country where I live, a long, long time ago, is they were escaping that type of religious kind of struggle where people were condemned, because they didn't believe the same thing or something. So maybe right now it's more of the Islam is happening versus the Christian that happened in the past, the Catholics and taking over peoples and things like that. So it's interesting. Okay, well, let's keep going. It's something to think about here. So against the jihadists of the Islamic State, scattering its forces. So when you scatter something, it's like if you throw something and it scatters all around. So it's rather than focusing in one specific place, they're putting airplanes, let's say, in many different locations. They're flying over many different locations to scatter the power or the force. Of course, then if they're damaging things, the networks that have been built in Syria that were helping fuel. So we read this pretty often when we're reading articles. To help fuel something means like to give it energy, to give it power, to give it gas is the idea. So something helps fuel something else by providing support, usually. Okay, so yeah, their seizure when they took over a large part of Iraq. To seize something is the verb, means to take over. All right, so who took part? Besides the U.S., the Pentagon says that Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates participated in or supported operations against targets associated with the self-declared Islamic State. U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki confirmed that we informed the Syrian regime directly of our intent to take action through our ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Samantha Power, to the Syrian permanent representative to the United Nations. Okay.
Who took part? Besides the US, the Pentagon says that Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates participated in or supported operations against targets associated with the self-declared Islamic State. US State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki confirmed that we informed the Syrian regime directly of our intent to take action through our ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Samantha Power, to the Syrian permanent representative to the United Nations.
So it's basically kind of like a warning. All right, so several Arabic countries, like they already said above, either participated in, so if you're paying attention to prepositions that are being used, we participate in things like events, like war, like struggle, like parties, things like that, or they supported them somehow. And operations. So an operation is, again, kind of like a campaign. It's what you're doing, your plan. And so when you're reading anything about military, you'll always hear the word operations. So it's just referring to the actual logistics of what's happening. So there are operations against the targets with the self-declared Islamic State. So if something is self-declared, it means you're saying, okay, we are the Islamic State. You're not being told that you are, or given some kind of grant or constitution to be a state or something, but you're declaring it yourself. So you could be a self-declared violin expert or something like that. It just means that you say you are, but maybe you are and maybe you aren't. So in this case, they're not considered the Islamic State, by the other countries in the area, for example. Okay, I think we all know spokesperson, the person who speaks for the government or a department or a business or something like that. And they confirmed, so they said, yes, we did do this. They informed or told the Syrian regime. So here in English, when we're using the word regime, it's not usually what we mean by government. So like if you talk about the United States government, we wouldn't say the U.S. regime unless you were trying to say like Obama's a dictator or something like that. But if you have a government that is actually being run by some kind of dictatorship or a military group or something, then we use the word regime. So it's not always, it means something other than like a recognized legal government, basically. Okay, so our intent, our intent is what we want to do, what we're thinking of doing. So our intent is to attack you guys. So we're going to take action. And they did this through, so the communication was given through, the means of communication was by the ambassador or through the ambassador to the Syrian, and this is the title here, permanent representative to the United Nations. All right, so it wasn't just... So we could say that the United States did not act unilaterally. They had support from other countries and also using the United Nations as a way to communicate information. All right, we warned Syria not to engage U.S. aircraft. We did not request the regime's permission. We did not coordinate our actions with the Syrian government. We did not provide advanced notification to the Syrians at a military level or give any indication of our timing on specific targets. Secretary of State John Kerry did not send a letter to the Syrian regime, Saki says. All right, so who was targeted? The Islamic State in its Syrian headquarters of Raqqa, the al-Qaeda affiliate Nusra Front, or Jabhat al-Nusra in northwest Syria, a shadowy group known as Khorasan that the U.S. says is planning an imminent attack against the United States and Western interests. Okay, Anatoly, I have all that.
Okay.
Hi, Hussein. Go ahead, sorry.
We warned Syria not to engage U.S. aircraft. We did not request the regime's permission. We did not coordinate our actions with the Syrian government. We did not provide advance notification to the Syrians at the military level or give any indication of our timing on specific targets. Secretary of State John Kerry did not send a letter to the Syrian regime, Psaki says. Who was targeted?
Perfect.
The Islamic State in its Syrian headquarters of Raqqa, the Al-Qaeda affiliated Nusra Front or Jabhat al-Nusra in northwest Syria. A shadowy group known as Khorasan that US says it is planning an imminent attack against the United States and Western interests.
Okay. All right, so these are continuing with the quote here. So basically, they didn't give Syria very much information about exactly what they were going to do. So they just warned them. So they gave them some notice, like, hey, we're about to attack you. They also told them you should not engage. That means don't fight with us. So if we're flying over, don't shoot us, because otherwise something worse is probably going to happen to you. So it's a warning, not to do something. So to engage a U.S. aircraft means to start a fight with it or to try to shoot it out of the sky or something. They did not request permission, so they did not ask permission, like, hey, is it okay if we come and attack you? They didn't say that. We did not coordinate our actions with. So to coordinate something with somebody else means you work together. So you let them know, hey, we're going to be bombing you at 5 o'clock, be ready. They did not coordinate that. We did not give them advance notification. So to provide somebody with something means to give them. So advance, of course, would be ahead of time. They didn't say, okay, be ready at, later this evening because we're coming. They just told them we're coming, but no information about when. They also didn't give them any indication of. So an indication is kind of like a little bit of a clue. So you indicate when something might happen if you're giving clues, but they didn't indicate their timing, when this might happen, and specific targets, what specifically might get hit or bombed, like a certain type of building or something like that. John Kerry, Secretary of State's job is to deal with foreign governments. So that's, the government here in the United States is part of the government is the President's office and his cabinet. So the Secretary of State is John Kerry. He works with the President. So the President that's not his job to do this kind of stuff directly. So John Kerry, that's his job to communicate with other governments. And so, but he did not send them a letter. All right, so targeted, you said that word well, Anatoly. Targeted, so who was targeted? What was the target? Who are they trying to knock out or hit? And so they tell us a bunch of them. I'm not really very knowledgeable about those organizations. But interestingly here, a couple words, shadowy group. So kind of if you describe somebody as shadowy, it's like you're not sure what they're planning, probably something negative, so you're watching out for them. And so, in fact, the U.S. government believes that group is planning an imminent attack. So if something is imminent, it means it can happen at any time. So, if you're waiting for an imminent attack, it means you have to be prepared now because something could happen.
Lisa,
Yes.
could you please? It is important.
Yeah.
Engage in the first part.
Yeah.
Engage with US or engage against US.
Yeah, it's against, really. Yeah.
Against. Okay,
Yeah. And this verb you can use a couple of different ways. So this is a specific kind of military kind of speak. So if you engage U.S. aircraft, it means you fire first, maybe, or fire at them, and then they're going to fire back. So if you see them flying over and you try to knock them out, that means you've engaged, you've started something. But you can engage with somebody, like in a conversation, for example. It means you're participating,
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so NPR's Deborah Amos tells Morning Edition that, Morning Edition is a news program, that militants with the Islamic State, also known as ISIS or ISIL, or ISIL, were a major focus of the attacks. The Pentagon said the strikes employed 47 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from USS Arleigh Burke and USS Philippine Sea, operating from international waters in the Red Sea and North Arabian Gulf, as well as U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps fighter, remotely piloted and bomber aircraft deployed to the U.S. Central Command Area of Operations. So a lot of U.S. military words right there. Okay. So Adrian, why don't you read that for us, please?
NPR's Deborah Amos tells Morning Edition that militants with the Islamic State, also known as ISIS or ISIL, were a major focus of the attacks. The Pentagon said that the strikes employed 47 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from USS Bunker and USS Philippine, SEA,
C.
operating from international waters in the Red Sea and North Arabian Gulf, as well as USA's Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps fighter, remotely pilot and bomber aircraft deployed to the USA Central Command area of the operation.
Good. Okay, so NPRs, so again, this is National Public Radio, and then apostrophe S is used because she is works for NPR. So NPR's Deborah Amos, that's the person who works for NPR. So she's telling Morning Edition, which is the name of a news program that happens in the morning on this news station. So the militants, those are the people who are in ISIS. You know, they're militant against something. So they're like soldiers, but because they're not in a state or representing a government, they're called militants instead. Something like guerrilla warfare, this type of stuff. All right, so ISIS or ISIL, they're a major focus of the attack. So again, major, significant, important focus of the attack. So they're the ones they're really trying to get. The Pentagon, that's in the United States, part of the military, that directs military actions. The strikes, a strike is when you do, some kind of, you use a weapon, some kind of weapon, usually a bombing type thing, either from the air or from a tank or something, and you strike against a target. So it's when you shoot off the missile or the bomb or something. And so they use some Tomahawk. These are kind of well-known, popular types of cruise missiles. They're very powerful. They launched them, so that's when you send them off. So they sent them off of these boats, actually. They were in the water. They're operating from or working out of the international waters of the Red Sea and the North Arabian Gulf. So if you're looking at a map, you'll be able to see where that's at more clearly. And we have lots of parts of the U.S. military working together. So it's not just one section of the military. It's the Air Force, which is, of course, the airplanes, and the Navy, which is the water, the boats and things, and the Marine Corps is also on the water. And they are remotely piloted. So remotely means they're using some kind of remote control. They're not using real live people. So they're being controlled or flown by or piloted by a remote from the boats and bomber aircraft. So bomber aircraft, of course, is just an airplane that deploys bombs. Deploy means to drop your bombs. Okay, so that's what's happening. A couple of words there that are related more to military actions. According to Deborah, what is striking about this air campaign is that it was expanded to include the Nusra Front. Those strikes took place in northwest Syria. The Nusra Front is an al-Qaeda affiliate and has been at odds with ISIS. In fact, some of al-Nusra's fighters have been at war on the ground with ISIS, joining with more moderate groups against them. Okay, Hussein? All that right there.
According to Deborah, what is striking about this air campaign is that it was expanded to include the Nusra Front. Those strikes took place in northwest Syria. The Nusra Front is an al-Qaeda affiliate and has been at odds with ISIS. In fact, some of al-Nusra's fighters have been at war on the ground with ISIS, joining with more moderate groups against them.
Okay, so what is striking about something? It means what is kind of interesting or newsworthy or significant about this, something that you notice, it's surprising. is that they're including. So they expanded, means they made it larger. The area is larger. So now it includes this other group that they're trying to get as well. And so they're just talking about where it took place. So it took place in northwestern Syria. And let's see, they've been at odds. So to be at odds with means they're kind of arguing. They're fighting. If you're at odds with your parents, it means you don't agree with them about something, so you're having an argument. So these two different groups are fighting with each other. And so that's one of the things that makes it difficult for Americans trying to understand the situation is, what does it really look like on the ground? Who's fighting who? What are they calling themselves? What are they stand for? Who are they representing? That kind of stuff. NPR's Tom Bowman says not much is known about the Khorasan group. The Pentagon says they took this action to disrupt an imminent attack plotting against the United States by this group that's made up of seasoned al-Qaeda veterans. There were 8 strikes around Aleppo targeting this group. The Pentagon says it had training camps, explosives and munitions productions facility, communications building, and also command and control facilities. All right. I would say, okay, there we go. I think there's a couple of typos there. I'm going to have to fix them when you read. Hasan? Hasan, you can read that right there.
Which one?
This one.
The NPR? Okay.
Yeah.
NPR's Tom Bowman says not much is known about the Khorasan group. The Pentagon says that they took this action to disrupt an imminent attack being plotted against the United States by this group that's made up of seasoned al-Qaeda veterans. There were 8 strikes around Aleppo targeting this group. The Pentagon said it had training camps, explosives and munitions production facilities, communications buildings, and also command and control facilities.
Okay, yeah. So again, they took action against to disrupt. So if you're trying to disrupt, you're trying to break it up. This group is working together, and you want to cause some kind of disruption in their life. So they want to make it a big impact, so that they can break up this plot that they're doing against the United States. So apparently that's their reasoning for attacking this particular group, because they believe that the group is plotting or planning to attack the United States in some way. They're made up of. So to be made up of, that's who is in the group. So the group is made up of or contains or has seasoned al-Qaeda veterans. If you're seasoned about something, it means you're experienced. So, people who have been in al-Qaeda for a while, and they are veterans of the fight, the struggle, the different things that al-Qaeda has been doing over the years. All right, so there are 8 strikes targeting this group around Aleppo. So the preposition they're using around just to describe the location, the area, not exactly in Aleppo, but around that area. And they said that they basically targeted these types of things. So training camps where they were training people. Of course, explosives, things that blow things up, and munitions. That's the ammunition for the weapons that they have. Communications and command and control. So again, these are very common military type words that you use. Command and control is where you lead the forces, where you tell them what to do, what to strike, that kind of thing. The U.S. reportedly conducted the strikes against the group on its own. An unnamed U.S. official tells the New York Times that the Khorasan group is led by Muhsin al-Fadli, a senior Qaeda operative who, according to the State Department, was so close to Osama bin Laden that he was among a small group of people who knew about the September 11, 2001 attacks before they were launched. The Times says there is almost no public information about the Khorasan group, which was described by several intelligence, law enforcement, and military officials as being made up of Qaeda operatives from across the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa. Members of the cell are said to be particularly interested in devising terror plots using concealed explosives. It is unclear who, besides Mr. Fadeli, is part of the Khorasan group. Okay, you got a lot there.
the US reportedly conducted the strikes against the group on its own. An unnamed US official tells the New York Times that the Khorasan group is led by Mohsin al-Fadli, a senior Qaeda operative who, according to the State Department, was so close to Osama bin Laden that he was among a small group of people who knew about the September 11, 2001 attacks before they were launched. The Times says there is almost no public information about the Khorasan group, which was described by several intelligence, law enforcement, and military officials as being made up of Qaeda operatives from across the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa. Members of the cell are said to be particularly interested in devising terror plots using concealed explosives. It is unclear who Mr. Fadel is part of the Khorasan group.
Okay, so the U.S. reportedly. So whenever you're hearing the news, you'll hear this word reportedly because it has been reported, but maybe we can't confirm it really. So somebody told us this, and so we use the word that the U.S. reportedly has done something, something, something. So reportedly, they conducted the strikes on their own. So to conduct something means to do it, to follow through with this plan. So they did this particular strike on their own, so without the other countries that they mentioned before. So this group is led by, it means he's the head of it, he's the leader, he's the one who leads this group. Senior operative, so an operative is somebody who works within an organization, so in this case it's this Al-Qaeda organization. Apparently he was close to Osama bin Laden, so that means like as a friend, as a co-worker, cooperative, working for the same thing. He was high level, you could say, and so he supposedly, reportedly knew about the attacks before they even happened. But we can see that we don't really have that much information. So several intelligence, that means intelligence gathering data, information. We don't really know that much about this particular group. We know that members of the cell, so the cell is another word for the group, this group, they are particularly or especially or significantly interested in devising terror plots. So they're interested in, so that's the preposition you use if you're interested in doing something, and what they want to do is to create or to devise or to mastermind or to plan terror plots using concealed explosives. Concealed means hidden. So hidden explosives that they're going to put somewhere and then blow something up. That's what their plot or their plan is for some reason. The Wall Street Journal reports, so far more than a dozen airstrikes have hit Islamic State military targets and administrative buildings in Aleppo and Raqqa provinces in the north, as well as Al-Qaeda's official arm in the country, Al-Nusra Front in the northwestern city of Idlib, the opposition said. And what are the consequences? All right, Reuters quotes a resident in Raqqa as saying there is an exodus from the city in the wake of the bombardment. It started in the early hours of the day after the strikes. People are fleeing toward the countryside, the resident tells Reuters. Reuters is a news agency. Okay, Anatoly.
Okay. The Wall Street Journal reports, so far, more than a dozen airstrikes have hit Islamic State military targets and administrative buildings in Aleppo and Raqqa provinces in the north, as well as Al-Qaeda's official arm in the country, Al-Nusra Front in the northwestern city of Idlib, the opposition said. What are the consequences? Reuters quotes a resident in Raqqa as saying there is an exodus from the city in the wake of the bombardment. It started in the early hours of the day after the strikes. People are fleeing toward the countryside, the resident tells Reuters.
I'm just trying to find a map. See, oh, here we go. Okay, I'll show you this map in just a minute. Okay, so what? Let's see. So far, so they report again. We're reporting dozen airstrikes have hit military targets and administrative buildings. So this would be like government buildings in the provinces. All right. Let's see. Consequences. A consequence like what's happening. You know, we did this. Now what's happening? So of course, a consequence of any type of bombing is that people start to flee. They try to escape. So an exodus is when a lot of people are trying to leave a place. They're trying to exit the city. They want to leave, of course, in the wake of. So in the wake of means like, you know, as it's happened. So after they got bombarded by these bombs, they got the bombs dropped on them. Now they're starting to leave. So in the wake of this bombardment, people are leaving. We say en masse, which is French, en masse. Okay, they're going towards the countryside, so away from the city into the country areas, a resident said. So a resident is somebody who lives there. The participation of the partners gives the operation some legitimacy, more legitimacy in the region because Arab governments took part. There are political optics about this operation put together in Washington, NPR's Deborah Amos says, adding that the agreement to participate changes the stakes for the Arab partners. Okay, Adrian.
The participation of the partners gives the operation some legitimacy. More legitimacy in the region because Arab government took part. There are political optics about this operation put together in Washington. NPR is Deborah Amos said, adding that the agreement, the participate changed the stakes for the Arab partners.
Okay. All right. So it's more legitimate. It's like it's okay. So if something has some legitimacy, it means it's other people agree with it. So it wasn't just the U.S. coming in and being a bully and saying we're gonna knock you guys out, but some other countries, especially some Arab governments, also supported and took part. So that gives this action more legitimacy, according to this. There are political optics. So optics about the operation, political consequences, things that are happening, people are getting together. What are they going to do next? That's kind of like the idea of what's going to happen politically. What are the consequences going to be, and what are the choices we have to have a political solution versus an armed solution, and to change the stakes. So if the stakes are like what's at stake, what's going to happen if we do this, or what's going to happen if we don't do this. So, having the Arab partners changes things, changes how important this is, and whether or not the U.S. is going to continue to do something about it, that kind of thing. The BBC's security correspondent Frank Gardner speculates that the Islamic State will be enraged by this. It has no effective military answers to U.S. air power, so those Arab countries that supported or took part in the action may well now be bracing themselves for possible reprisals. Speaking on MSNBC, Pentagon spokesman Rear Admiral John Kirby says the U.S. is still assessing the effectiveness of these strikes. Okay, who's here?
Okay. The BBC's security correspondent Frank Gardner speculates that Islamic State will be enraged by this. It has no effective military answers to U.S. air power, so all those Arab countries that supported or took part in the action may well now be bracing themselves for possible reprisals. Speaking on MSNBC, Pentagon spokesman Rear Admiral John Kirby says the U.S. is still assessing the effectiveness of these strikes.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to address, Hasan, you asked about the consequences. Usually you could say the consequences, those are just the effects, what happened, but usually the word consequences refers to something like negative, like we did this, now what's going to happen. So usually if it's a positive, you might say the results or the positive effects or something like that. So it doesn't have to be specifically negative, but it usually is if you're using the word the consequence. In parenting, you say, you know, there's a consequence for your actions, and so it usually means there's some kind of punishment. So yeah, it's more used for negative, although the definition itself doesn't imply that, but that's how it's used more commonly. Okay, so the BBC security correspondent. So a correspondent is a reporter. They report on these things. Usually you have like a foreign correspondent or security or Washington correspondent. It's where it kind of, you tell where they're located and what they're reporting on, and then you use the word correspondent. So it's just a reporter. Let's see, Frank Gardner speculates. So he speculates. So to speculate means you're making kind of a guess. Like, I think this is what's going to happen. So I'm speculating, I'm thinking, I'm telling you, I'm kind of making an assumption about something, you know, based on something, some information I might have. So it's not a crazy guess. It's kind of an informed opinion, you could say. All right, so they're not sure. He says Islamic State will be enraged by this. So of course they're going to be upset. Enraged means upset. You're mad. But they don't have you know, any effective military answer. So they can't really shoot down the U.S. So instead, what might be the consequence is that they might take a reprisal. So if you have a reprisal, it's like a revenge. So they might do their revenge in some of these Arab countries. So some of these Arab countries that actually supported or took part in this action, they might have to brace themselves. To brace yourself means to get ready, to prepare yourself. So brace yourself for something that might happen. So a possible reprisal or some kind of attack as revenge or payback. So they're still assessing or evaluating the effectiveness of, you know, is this going to work? Did the strikes really work against these groups, or now are these groups just going to attack civilians or people in these other countries? So, you know, it's not sure now what's going to happen. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but let me see. So Hamid, you were saying, were you going to tell me a little bit more about what's happening as a result of this to Turkey?
I mean, did you hear about our citizen rescuing by our government, especially from our intelligence service?
No. So what? Tell me about that.
There were almost 50 people in the border of Syria, I guess, and
Okay.
the IS and IS hijacked them, and they were like they lived almost 2 or more months under their hands.
Okay.
Then our intelligence worked very well, and 2 days ago they rescued our citizens.
Oh, okay. Prisoner exchange. Okay. These hostages, but they were the hostages. Okay, so they were having them hostage.
Yes.
Was that the people who were like the truck drivers and stuff that were delivering things? Was that what that was?
No.
No. Okay.
They were the members of embassy. Really, our ambassador was a member of that. They invaded our embassy of Mosul in Iraq, and they captured the head of the embassy as well. It was very serious situation for Turkey. But they were released.
Okay, yeah.
3 days. Yes.
Okay, so it's about the battle. Okay. Yeah, 49 Turkish citizens held hostage by that group in Iraq for more than 3 months. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so now they're back in Turkey, and they were released.
Yes,
Okay.
It was very good victory of diplomacy.
Oh, good. Yeah, great. Took a little while, but it worked. What, Hussein?
Because ISIS released them. I think. They say in the media like Turkey freed them. But when it comes to true, when you look at when you see the reality, it's the ISIS released them.
I see.
I think Turkey didn't do a lot about it, but
Okay.
they had to. ISIS had to release them. I think.
They had to release them. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to follow, and like you said, you don't know. Everybody tells the story from their own point of view, so we don't always know the exact facts all the time. So, okay, guys. Well, it's interesting. It's happening closer to you than it is to me, so I hope it doesn't impact Turkey too much, Hamid. I know that's a problem, but I don't know. Hopefully,
I think it doesn't affect the world.
the world.
Yes.
It doesn't affect everywhere, yeah.
Yes, and now see there is a mini world. Every country is every country is in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always an interesting thing, like who should act and what should they do and whose business is it, and yeah.
But I wish we can live in the peace world.
Yeah, that would be nice. It would be nice for regular citizens. Some people don't seem to think it's that important, but I don't know. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. We'll keep in touch. Thanks, guys, for coming to class, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Bye, bye.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.